All right, my friends, good afternoon. My name is Mario Bolivar. I'm the pastor of Eustis Presbyterian Church. And today we gather once again to read the book of Revelations. We do this in an attempt to explore a book that is often misunderstood or misquoted or misused. My hope, my prayer is that during this, I count them 17 weeks, that you gain not simply understanding of what is the minimal thing that you can believe and still be called a Christian, but that you found something of practice, that you have found that the book of Revelation not only talks about what is yet to come, what is yet to happen, but what you could be doing today as you discover the seven seals, the seven thunders, the seven trumpets, the seven bowls. Obviously, today we're going to talk about the seven thunders, which is supposed to be a secret, and because they never explain what that is or what happened, but we're going to talk about it during the process. To begin, I wanted to show you something and maybe spark some conversation among us at this time. Let me share them. I will put them on the iPad so I can show them to you. This is the first one. It's not the license plate, so don't pay attention to the license plate, but you see that? You see what that says? Jesus, I love you. Possess me. Good, bad, what do you think? Oh, the whole thing about possess me is like it takes you out of the control, right? I mean, it's a good thing that God will possess you, but once you're possessed, no longer you're in control. Something that takes over you. So it's a bit of a contradiction, but how good to say, I want to lose control in you. So it's good or bad, right? Obviously, it was significant enough because I took a picture, and yes, I was driving. What an irresponsible man to be taking a picture. Yes. No. No. Yeah. And obviously, how irresponsible of me to be driving and taking a picture of somebody's license without them knowing and all that. But the reality is that I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about this conversation today. But that's not the only one that I wanted to show you today. Let's talk about this one. Most people don't want to be part of the process. They just want to be part of the outcome. But the process is where you figure out who is worth being part of the outcome. Think about it. Think about it. And as we discover on chapter 21 and 22, which will conclude today, I want to show you this one. This is for those who play sports. Dear coaches, dear parents, you're right. Coaches do play favorites. They play the players that are committed and coachable, the players that are disciplined and dependable, the players that are talented and accountable, the players that are resilient and respectful. Yesterday, we were practicing, and I benched Dante for about 30 minutes. He was just not paying attention. He was playing with dirt when I told him not to play with dirt. He's 7. I'm daddy. He doesn't coach me, Coach Mario, like he should, like I've asked. He just says, but you're dad. And all the kids just start calling me dad. And, so I bench him. And I'll say, my hand will not quiver to bench you in a game. And then he started crying and all that because of how bad I am. But no, bench him as in I set him in the bench. Yeah. No, it's like he was on the field And then I told him that he needed to stand on the bench. That's what I bench him means, is that I told him to sit down and to. So as I want you to see these three pictures, because I hope that it tunes your mind on the conversation that we are about to have on chapter 21 and 22, which I like to read together. There are a bunch of verses. There's like 45 altogether, but I like to read them together because they go together. Much like chapter 19 and 20, you could split them, obviously, but I think they are better together. They are like a burger with fries. You can eat them by themselves, but they are better together, unless you like vegetables and stuff like that. So let me begin reading chapter 21, and then, like we did last week, chapter 22, we're going to read it verse by verse, and then we're going to talk about it, because verse 21, chapter 21 is the one that sets the tone for the last two chapters and the end of the book. You will see the New King James Version on your left. You will see the New Living Translation on the right. And that is, we do that for comparison. Chapter 21, New Living Translation. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, and the sea was also gone. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. I hear a loud shout from the throne saying, "Look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes." I love that verse. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever. And the one sitting on the throne said, "Look, I am making everything new." And then he said to me, "Write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true." And he also said, "It is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the springs of the water of life. All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But cowards, unbelievers, the corrupt, murderers, the immoral, those who practice witchcraft, idol worshippers, and all liars, their fate is in the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death." Then one of the seven angels who held the seven bowls containing the seven last plagues came and said to me, "Come with me. I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." The New King James says, then the one seventh angel who had the seven bowls filled with the seven last plagues came to me and talked with me and saying, "Come, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife." Now I'll continue verse 10. So he took me in the spirit to a great high mountain, and he showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. It shone with the glory of God and sparkled like precious stone, like jasper, as clear as crystal. The city wall was broad and high, with 12 gates guarded by 12 angels, and the names of the 12 tribes of Israel were written on the gates. There were 3 gates on each side, east, north, south, and west. The wall of the city had 12 foundation stones, and on them there were written the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. The angel who talked to me held his hand a gold measuring stick to measure the city, its gates, and its wall. When he measured it, he found it was a square. It was a square as wide as it's long. In fact, its length and width and height were each 1,400 miles. Then he measured the walls and found them to be 216 feet thick, according to the human standard used by the angel. The wall was made of jasper, and the city was pure gold and clear as glass. The wall of the city was built on the foundation stones inlaid with 12 precious stones. The first was jasper, the second was sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth carnelian, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were made of pearls, each gate from a single pearl, and the main street was pure gold, as clear as glass. I saw no temple in the city, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. And the city has no need of sun or moon, for the glory of God illuminates the city, and the Lamb is its light. The nations will walk in its light, and the kings of the world will enter the city in all their glory. Its gates will never be closed at the end of the day, because there's no night there. Be closed at the end of the day, because there is no night there. And all of the nations will bring their glory and honor into the city. Nothing evil will be allowed to enter, nor anyone who practices shameful idolatry and dishonesty, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. My friends, this is the word inspired by God for us, the children of God. Thanks be to God. Would you pray with me? Dear God, thank you for this day and the opportunity that we have of coming together as one body to reflect and to seek and ask you to reveal your presence in our lives. Thank you, O gracious Father, for all the things that you do and the way that you move every day around us. Thank you, Lord, for the patience that you have with us and with your people. To you be the glory now and forever. Amen. All right. So, do you guys remember what happened on chapter 20? For those that were here last week. Who was defeated forever and ever? Satan. Can you imagine a time and a place where the source of evil, not Satan, sin, doesn't exist? Can you imagine a time in our life where you were actually will be unable to sin? Yeah, pretty crazy. It goes beyond our mind. But when Satan and his tricks will be done, and all his angels and the people that must be punished will be punished, and God's favorite will be favorites, because the rest of them did what? After 1,000 years of Jesus ruling the earth, the minute that Satan was out there, they sided with the evil. That's chapter 20 for you. So now, obviously, chapter 21 begins saying, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared. Now, there is many people who will consider that the old was destroyed, and there is a new thing. Much like what happened in the flooding. The world was destroyed and a new was flourished. Others, and in this position, me, I think that there's not the destruction that we might think. What it is a new life. Much like what Jesus did, there is a reincarnation, a resurrection of the reality of us as children of God. Now, if you read the email that I sent today, you will consider that from Genesis 3 to Revelation 20, the world has lived and endured sin and the evil's attack. Now, can you imagine what this new creation might look like without Satan and without sin. Noel is right. It's hard to describe. And yet John describes it here, or tries at least. Yeah, that's very interesting, right? Don't you think? Mm-hmm. But what does that mean? What do you guys think? What does the sea is gone also? That is not necessary. Now, if you remember Genesis 1, the Spirit hovered over the water. This is something that I have shown you before. Genesis 1. Verse 2. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep of the waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. So according to this, the water already was. And God did not create the water. Who comes from the water? Jesus. In his baptism and affirmation, both blood and water. Jesus comes from the water. In his baptism, he comes, and what happens? God says, "You are my beloved, in whom I well please. This is my son, the begotten." Type of thing. Who also comes from the water? The first beast. So what is water? A conduit, a channel, a door. Neither good or bad. Water is just water. So, to me, when Revelations 20 says, and there are many instances where the water was used. I mean, God separated the waters, allowed the people of Israel to march through it, and he closed it, killing all the Egyptians. What is water but an instrument? But when God comes, there is no need for instruments. There is no need for trading. There is no need to sustain. Because when we're talking about water, we're talking about life. I mean, what's the number? You and I are mostly water, right? Yeah. And what does it say? And what does it say that when there is no water? Well, it's not needed anymore because God supplies all of it. Later in the verses, you will see that they are going to be vineyards and plants that will produce fruit. But there's no water. How is a tree giving fruit? Sustained by God. So it is significant. And the sea was also gone. And maybe the sea is just the sea and the rivers and the lakes. So, Linda, who is the living water? Yes. Correct. And we will talk about the Samaritan woman at the well when Jesus says, "Woman, give me water." You talking to me? It's like, yeah, you give me water. And if you give me water, I will give you water that will never allow you to be thirsty again. And the woman says, "But you don't even have a bucket." Because it's not about water. Yeah. So, all right, let us continue. And I saw a holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. So in this verse, I don't want you to think about a city being a city. And I don't want you to think about Jerusalem being Jerusalem. Whatever you're thinking, it's not. It is like a bride. And last week we talked about it. What happens when the bride enters. And she knows she's destined. Obviously, like I told you last week, I have entered into the habit of looking at the groom while he looks at the bride. Because that is the reaction that we would have. The bride enters. And he's not going to marry to us. We're not at the center of the equation. Who is at the center of the equation? Jesus. And Jesus is the groom. Yes and no. What we have to consider is that it will be good whether we are part of the bride or just guests, if you remember that conversation. Early on, we would discover that the bride is not simply the church, because it doesn't matter who is the bride, as long as you get invited and as long as you accept the invitation to the wedding feast. And not only that, but that you're prepared to that. So that is connected to this. Now, Noel missed out on this explanation, so let me take you a little bit on that. There is going to be a feast, and God says that the coming of this Messiah is like a wedding feast. And in the Gospels, we're early told that who are going to be guests, and they talk about whom. You guys remember that all? Who are the important guests who are not the bride, but they're part of the guests? Abraham, Jacob. Where is this? All right, let us go back to that. No. No. Let us go back to our notes. Matthew 22nd, verse 1 to 14. Okay. Jesus also told them of another parable, said, the kingdom of God of heaven can be illustrated by the story of the king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who were invited, but they were all refused to come. And that's where they send others. Correct. Now go to Matthew. Now that we know that the kingdom of God is like a wedding feast, let us go again to Matthew 8. Same gospel, different chapter. Matthew 8, verse 11. Let's begin at verse 10. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed. Turning to those who were following him, he said, I'll tell you the truth. I haven't seen faith like this one of all Israel. I'll tell you that many Gentiles will come from all over the world, from the east and the west, and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the feast of the kingdom of heaven. So the promise, the analysis is, if Abraham and Isaac and Jacob are mentioned by name and they are sitting, that means that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are not part of the bride. I know. So, at the center of this, I want you to consider, does it matter who the bride is? Sure, it does, because it does. But what is more important is that when you receive the invitation, you say yes. And that when you say yes, you are prepared to go to the wedding. Why? Because what happens to those who are not prepared to go to the banquet, or who show up in the wrong attire?
Excuse me, but I find that I've been taught that if you really honestly spend like 5 minutes before you die, They say, oh, well, this guy brings God. I believe that Saddam Hussein was saved. Had he done that,
Okay.
but you just said he wasn't prepared. So now what? He wasn't prepared. I mean,
how do you know?
Because preparation takes time.
I'm not the judge of that. I can't tell who is prepared or who's not. What I'm telling you is that while we have life, you need to find a way to be prepared. Because let us go back to Matthew 8, verse 22. If you continue to go down, verse 11. But when the king came in to meet the guests, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes for a wedding. Chapter 22, verse 11. Friend, he asked, how is it that you are here without wedding clothes? Oh, what you don't know is that historically, the owner of the wedding gives you robes to enter the wedding. So the owner provided everything that this person needed to wear to enter the wedding, and this person had to make the choice of not wearing what was provided. That's probably something I didn't share last week. Then the king said to his aides, bind his hands and feet and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Hell. That's what happens when you're invited and you don't show up, or you're invited, you say yes, but you are not prepared to be according to the wedding. So again, go ahead, Noel.
So, 14, then you're called, okay.
Few are chosen.
Few are chosen. So can I expect with that many who were called by false teachers?
Nope. This is what you expect. This is what you should expect.
Well, if I was called by God,
yeah,
I get there and he throws me out.
He's not gonna throw you out of a whim. He's gonna throw you out because when you did the prayer and you accepted it in his heart, you were not honest.
Yeah, okay.
When you tell somebody, oh, but coach, you have to play everybody. No, you do not. I'm sorry, but not everybody should get a trophy. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I am one of those people who do not believe in participation trophies. Yeah. I believe that everybody should be valued. I believe everybody should have playing time. I believe everybody should have the opportunity to compete, and everybody should have opportunity to grow and be better every day. But
you don't believe in equity. I mean, you're going to always have players that aren't as good as you guys, but they're trying.
Look, I played ball all my life, and I was good, not because I was talented, but because I hustled. And when the coach spoke, I was there. And when he says, run 2 laps, I did not question. I ran. When he said, do this, and it didn't make sense, I still did it. Yeah. It is obviously different because we have to believe that God is just and merciful and kind and loving, and he will never do or ask you to do something that is not good. Now, let me ask you, when the church has killed people and they have killed it in the name of God, is that God telling the church to kill? You also know that God has commanded the people of Israel to kill women and children from other nations, right? I know. But if you only obey when you fully understand, it's a problem also. My friends, this is where faith comes in. I am not going to be able to answer all your questions. I don't even have them myself. What is the thing I can control? Today, the only thing I can control is how I love you. That's it. That's it. The commandments, there are many. There are many things that God says. But what is at the top of the commandments? What are the first two more valuable? Love God and your neighbor. And everything else is built on this. So, to quote a famous professor that I had in Old Testament, when in doubt, choose love. So, let us go back to Revelations as we took that detour. And let us go back to verse 21. And let us note. Let's check out verse 3. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, look, God's home is among his people, and he will live with them, and they will be his disciples, his people. God himself will be with them. Is this new? No, because God is with us right now. The difference is going to be that you're going to be able to see it with your senses, God's presence. Life will be easier. I don't know if you agree with me on this or not, but don't you think life would be easier if you were to be able to talk to God in English and he will answer you in English? God, what should I do? I don't know. Maybe you should not go there. Oh, okay. Wouldn't that be easier? Right? That's not how it works. But there's a time where God will be with his people in a way that we are yet to discover. That's something to look forward to. Now, this is nothing new. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever. Now, let's pay attention to Revelations 7, and you will see it there also on verse 17. This is when they're talking about the 12 tribes. Verse 17, if I remember correctly. For the Lamb on the throne will be their shepherd. He will lead them to the springs of living water, and God will wipe every tear from their eyes. I need to preach that sermon one of these days. What does it mean that God will wipe every tear from your eye? Yeah, it means that. Also, it means that he knows every tear that you have cried. Not only that, but that he will be so familiar to you that he will be able to get close to you, and you will be able so intimate with him that you will not be afraid of him touching your face. Because I promise you, if Nico is crying and he has his big drops that he has for tears, and you try to touch his face, what do you think Nico's gonna do? He is going to kick you, bite you, move, run away from you. But when daddy gets home and something happened, whether mommy did something to him or Dante did something to him, he will come, those tears in his eyes, looks up, says, hold me. And I just wipe that tear from his eye and he's all better. My friends, that's the promise of the coming of the Messiah. Yeah, the 3-year-old. Yeah. I mean, if you have seen him, that peace, that comfort, multiplied by infinity times 10, it will be when you and I meet our Creator, and he will wipe every tear from your eye. I mean, how amazing is that? That will be worth everything that we sacrifice, every ounce of struggle that we have done because of faith. It will be beautiful when that comes. You know, when you need to be consoled, put that in your prayer. God, I know you will wipe every tear from my face. That's a beautiful prophecy. Look, I am making everything new. I mean, that's amazing. It's not that he's going to give you a new hip replacement. He's going to give you a whole new thing. Not even just the head, but everything. And then he said this to me, write this down, for what I'm telling you is trustworthy and true. Now, this is not weird in the book of Revelations. There are things that God has told his people, especially John, not to write things. Do you remember where this happened before? You remember where you saw it? Revelation 7, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, that's a seal of the Lamb. And I saw another angel coming from the east, carrying the seal of the living God, and he shouted those who said, let us go to Revelations 11. Let's see. That's why I should write things down. Nope, that's the other one. All right. Oh, I remember. That's between, come on, brain. That's between the seals and the trumpets. That's about 6. Let's go to the other one. No, that's when he says, write these things. But there is a part of the Revelation where he says, don't write this. It's gonna bother me. Anyway, all right. I will remember by the end of the evening, I promise. Now, let's talk about this. Verse 7. All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. Tell me about that promise. Because this is the fulfillment of everything that you have heard through the Gospels. Why does this matter to us? Why does it matter for us to be called children of God? Think deeper. Relationship. It's not that he's just the God that you worship. Is that you're going to be having an intimate relationship with God, far better and vast than you know it now. That's the promise.
I also learned that when people say we're all children of God, but that's not true.
We are all children of God. Absolutely.
We're all creatures of God, but we're not all children of God.
The Bible doesn't teach us that everyone will have the opportunity to repent. Well, if everybody has the opportunity to repent, wouldn't everybody have the opportunity to become a child of God? But those who do not repent, then will not be children of God. All are invited. Matthew 22 tells you all are invited, but few are the ones that are accepted or welcome. Why? Because of their choice. Again, if we have a loving God, how come God sends us to hell? God does not send us to hell. God sends who to hell? Satan. The way I explain it is we are on a boat and we are drowning and we are on our way to the pit, to the bottom of the pit. Then Jesus shows up with another boat and says, I have a new way of life. Would you believe and trust me? Would you jump to my boat? But if you jump to my boat, then you're going to have to follow my boundaries. No, I'm going to say my boat. Can you come, please? Look, I am going to go to the deepest part of this lake, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to bring all the people that died, and I want to love you and bless you. This is a good life. Yes, you're going to have a different boat. You're going to have to let go of your control, but trust me, come. In the reality, some people are going to say no. They prefer to stay on their boat. And what happens? They sink. Is that Jesus' fault? Did Jesus send them to hell? No, he didn't. That's their own choice. So it's a matter of choice. It's a matter of us accepting that we need what? Jesus. Accepting that we need to what? Repent. Accept that we need to be saved. Accept that we cannot do anything by ourselves. Even when Satan comes back from hell and there's an army around us and we are about to be killed by all these followers of Satan, the fire from heaven comes down and burns everybody. And we are just like, thank you, Jesus. Why? Because we don't do anything besides accepting. Becoming a Christian is rather easy. Living and believing as a Christian is a difficult part. Believing as a Christian is a difficult part. Now, let us go back to the bottom of the chapter 22, the 21, and let's talk about the measuring stick. Verse 11. Nope. Verse 10. Oh, 15. Dear Lord. Then the angel who talked to me held in his hands a gold measuring stick to measure the city and its gates and its walls. This is also nothing new. It's also found in Revelation 11. However, in Revelation 11, the angel tells him to measure the inner parts of the sanctuary, to see and to measure the goodness versus the bad. Now, the angel is telling him, measure everything, because everything is good. So if you go to verse 11, chapter 11, you will see that then I was given a measuring stick. Go and measure the temple of God and the altar and count the numbers of worshipers, but do not measure the outer courtyard, for it's being turned over to the nations. They will trample the holy city for 42 months. Now, in the 22nd, in the 21, it's a completely different story. It's shown with the glory of God. Nope. When he measured it, he found it was square and wide and it was long. And in fact, its length and width and height were 1,400 miles. Why? Because now that evil is no longer there, now you can measure everything. And what happens if I give you a small ruler and I tell you to measure the church? What's going to happen? You're going to become familiar with everything. And you're going to see everything as good. Yeah, but the idea is not the measuring itself, is that when you're measuring something, you're going to be intimate in the knowledge of everything, every crack, every little thing. Just like imagine when you have somebody that lives with you for a long time and they know you so well. Sometimes it's a friend, sometimes your spouse, sometimes it's just your kid. Now, verse 18. This is just a verse. The wall was made of jasper and the city was pure with gold and clear as glass. Wait, what? Jasper, pure gold, but clear like glass. Why is John telling us this about the New Jerusalem? Have you ever tried to describe something that you feel, what you see? I mean, just remember meeting your spouse or giving birth to your child or any of the beautiful things that have happened to you that you have no words to describe, and yet somebody tells you, describe it. Better yet, have you ever seen a sport person after winning the championship, and what happens to them? The first thing somebody comes and says, hey, and they put it in their mouth. Hey, how do you feel? I am so thankful for everybody, and we work very well. And hey, don't they sound dumb? Yeah, right? So imagine John describing heaven. It's not that he's dumb. It's just that how can you describe something so pure and amazing? You can. So you try your best. So you describe it with the things that have more value in your life. That doesn't mean that heaven is going to have pure gold. It just means that it's something as valuable as pure gold. Maybe the sun, the radiance of God was going to be everywhere. So everything shine and beautiful, right? Which is a great segue for us to go to chapter 22. Let us go to chapter 22. Now, I am not going to read chapter 22. However, I'm going to show you a few things of chapter 22. Chapter 3, verse 3. No longer will there be a curse upon anything, for the throne of God and of the Lamb will be there, and his servants will worship him. That they're talking again is about sin, because sin is a curse upon us. When Cain killed his brother, there was a curse upon him. We suffer. When Adam and Eve were cast out from the Garden of Eden, there was a curse upon them. Everything that was bad about us will be lifted. Now, when you start reading at the end, and they will see his face, and his name will be written on their foreheads. He's talking about the seal of the Lamb, which is on chapter 7. Chapter 7. This is it. Wait, don't harm them. Don't harm the land or the sea or the trees we have placed until we have placed the seal of God on their foreheads of his servants. There is a protection around the people who believe in God that we should treasure. It's a protection that is established for you, but also for your family and friends. God has given you a seal of approval. Some people take the mark of the beast, but you have to be knowledgeable of the seal. If you know more about the mark of the beast than the seal of the Lamb, you're in trouble. Because then you're more intimate knowledge, then you are more intimate in the wrong than in the good. Then you're more intimate about the evil than the good. Mm-hmm.
They've been talking about that now very seriously in Europe. But you have to get that.
Yeah, they have been talking about. Well, but why would you think that someone will be more interested in talking about the mark of the beast to try to avoid it than to live in the seal of the Lamb, which gives you protection?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I said, what if that happens here and I'm still alive? Or we're all still alive, and we have to decide and say to everybody, or say to these people, no, They could throw us out of our homes.
That's speculations. I wouldn't deal with speculations. I would tell you.
This is all I've got.
Well, when you have children, right, Noel? Yeah. Okay. What's the problem with being considered more about the wrong things that can happen to a child than the good things that you can experience with the child? Well, I am not going to let my kid go outside because there are germs. So I'm going to lock my kid in a room with no light so that I can protect him. What's going to happen to that child? It's going to happen the opposite. What's going to happen when you stop enjoying life because you are concerned of the what-ifs of life? What's going to happen if you see somebody who needs help, but you are not going to help that person because of the maybes that somebody's waiting for you to kill you or to harm you? What's going to happen when you see somebody drowning and you know how to drive and are able to swim, but you're not going to save them because of the shark that might be in the water? All right, sorry, I had to take the call. My wife has called me 3 times. Hola, mi amor. Let us go back to verse 21, last verse of the book of Revelations. What is that saying to you? Of all the things.
The grace of God, of Jesus, with the holy people. So it was not with everybody, just the children of God.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
But you have to think not about this last part, but I want you to center your life on grace. Would you live being scared of not being included, or would you do what you can control? The book of Revelation needs to be centered in what you can do, and you can be full of love, living by the grace of God rather than what you control. So the news, the political ads, and everything that can happen, we need to coexist and exist by the grace of God that allows us to be here. At the center of everything, you need to cover yourself in the idea of grace. And what is grace? Mercy. But what is beyond mercy in grace? It is freely given to you. The problem is that you think you have to earn it. And you have to try to avoid things. No, my friends. The idea is that you take the time to live in grace. How can you learn to live by the grace of God? Yeah, by centering your life in learning about the good things and not living in fear. Because many of us live in fear. And as this sermon series is telling us, or I'm reminding you every single week, God has not given you a spirit of fear. So Noel, and for everybody who might be listening to this later, the news of the world ending because of this and because of that, you're living on fear. And God has not given you a spirit of fear. Just like I know I need to go to see my wife now, and I will. But God has not given me a spirit of fear. So I am not going to run, jump in my car, drive like crazy to go meet her at the gas station because I do not live in fear. I refuse to live in fear. And I want you to not believe in Jesus because you're afraid of hell. I want you to believe in Jesus because you love Jesus. Not because of what he did, not because of what he will do, but who he is. My friends, that concludes our book of Revelations. My hope is that you continue to study. And did I teach you everything? No. Amen to that. All right, my friends. Mario to the rescue. I will see you guys later.